Multi-source reasoning tests your ability to take information from multiple sources and synthesize it to answer questions. The information will likely be presented on multiple tabs. You'll have to click through the tabs to find the information you need. The data can be in the form of text, charts, or tables, and may be presented in a combination of all three. The information on the tabs may seem overwhelming, so you'll need to approach it similarly to how you approach reading comprehension. For multi-source reasoning questions, get a brief summary of the information in the tabbed pages. There's a lot of information that'll be given, so don't get lost in all the details, but focus on the broader picture. And don't be fixated on numbers or values. Simply understand what kind of information is given, then move on to the questions. Let's take a look at this question. The first tab is a paragraph that gives you data about the number of American pets and the frequency of spaying and neutering. It then goes on to describe the tables in the next two tabs. More specifically, the first table will show the one-time costs of adopting an animal in the United States, and the second table will focus on yearly expenses. Finally, it gives us an important warning. The data in the tabs are averages, and some dogs will require very different expenses according to their size. Next, move to the second tab. Here you're given a table with rows indicating several adoption expenses, separated into a column for dogs and a column for cats. Notice that not all expenses apply to both types of animals. The total cost of adoption isn't calculated for you, but you could find it with simple addition if necessary. Switch to the third tab to view another table. This one also shows expenses for dogs and cats. Rather than list one-time expenses, this lists the repeating yearly costs of those pets. Other than that, it's similar in structure to Table 1. Having scanned the tab, we're ready for the first question, which is 3 dichotomous choice yes-no questions. Let's start with the first statement. Table 1 in the second tab gives the annual cost of the toys and treats this question asks about, but that cost is per animal. Calculating the total expenditure for all pets requires knowing the total number of pets. To look for that data, you should check your notes, which will send you to the first tab. You know that there are approximately 80 million, rounded from 78.4 million dogs in America, and approximately 90 million, rounded from 86.4 million cats. The dog treats and toys cost an average of $60 per dog, and the cat treats and toys cost an average of $40 per cat. So collectively, for 80 million dogs and $60 of costs on toys and treats per dog, Americans spent 80 million dogs times $60 per dog for a total of $4.8 billion. Do a similar calculation for the toys and treats for cats. 90 million cats times $40 per cat gives you $3.6 billion on toys and treats for cats. The combined total for money spent on cat and dog treats and toys is therefore only a little over $8 billion. Even though this is a high estimate, since both of the values above were estimated by rounding up, it's still less than $10 billion. So the answer for this statement must be no. Here's the next statement. You might remember seeing veterinary expenses on the tables, but even if you don't, you can probably deduce that visits to the veterinarian are a yearly expense, and that means Table 2 in the third tab. And just as in the previous question, calculating the total expenditure for all pets requires you to know how many pets there are. You can refer back to the first tab for that information, or better yet, just refer to your scratch work from the previous question, which used the exact same numbers. The table says that Americans spend on average $240 per year on veterinary expenses for dogs and $210 per year on veterinary expenses for cats. But even though dogs cost more, there are a greater number of cats. You can figure out which total is greater by multiplying $240 per dog by 78 million dogs and $210 per cat by 86 million cats. But it's even more effective to think proportionally. The ratio of 240 to 210 can be reduced, resulting in a ratio of dog costs to cat costs of 8 to 7. Now you can multiply each of the numbers in this simplified ratio by the corresponding number of pets. 8 times 78 equals 624, and 7 times 86 equals 602, meaning that more money is spent on the veterinary expenses of dogs each year than is spent on cats. The answer for this statement is no. The last part of this question requires you to know the total adoption and annual ownership costs. You'll need information from the tables in the second and third tabs. You'll also need to do some addition, if you haven't already, to find the total costs in each column. To find the total adoption costs, simply add the columns for both. The totals are $250 for a dog and $135 for a cat. Then, for ownership expenses, the average for a dog adds up to $625, and for a cat, ownership expenses add up to $665. If you add all of the expenses for dogs, the total comes out to $875 for adopting and owning a dog for a year. For a cat, it's $800. At first glance, it seems clear-cut that the dog will cost more than the cat, $75 more to be exact. But something should have caught your eye. This question specifies a small dog. When you paraphrase the tabs, you notice that size is mentioned briefly in tab 1. Researching that tab will reveal that small dogs average 25% less money to adopt and keep. Use some estimation here. Since 25% or 1/4 of $800 is equal to $200, 25% of $875 will be even more than that. It equals $218.75, but this is an unnecessary step on test day. So the cost reduction of having a small dog easily offsets the initial $75 difference you calculated between the cost of a dog and a cat. A small dog is therefore cheaper than a cat, so the answer is yes. Next, the same tabs are the source of the answer to this multiple choice question. This multiple choice question asks you for the cost of spaying or neutering all unspayed and non-neutered dogs and cats in America. A glance at the answer choices can provide an important hint, as many of the answer choices are quite far apart. With numbers this big and this spread out in the answer choices, it's usually best to estimate. Spaying and neutering statistics, as well as numbers of pets, are in the first tab. Since you're given that 78% of dogs and 88% of cats are spayed or neutered, you can subtract these percentages from 100% to find the percentage of both dogs and cats that have not been spayed or neutered. So that's 22% of these 78.4 million dogs and 12% of the 86.4 million cats that are unspayed or non-neutered. To estimate, instead say 20% of 80 million, which equals 16 million dogs, and 10% of 90 million, which equals 9 million cats, are unspayed or non-neutered. Spaying and neutering are one-time expenditures, so the second tab contains the price. For each dog, it's $100, and for each cat, it's $75. So at $100 each, it will cost about $1.6 billion to spay or neuter 16 million dogs. At $75 per cat, it'll cost $675 million, or about $0.68 billion, to spay or neuter 9 million cats. The combined cost of spaying or neutering all unspayed and non-neutered dogs and cats is therefore about $2.3 billion. Although the estimate rounds both percentages significantly down, it rounds the number of animals of both types up to compensate, so the resulting estimate is likely close to the real solution. Regardless, the next closest answer choice, $4 billion, can't be correct unless the above estimation is off by more than 50%. You can see that $2.5 billion is closest and confidently choose that as the correct answer. You've learned from working through this set of multi-source reasoning questions that it's crucial to get the gist of each tabbed page and take brief notes highlighting the main points before attempting to answer any questions. You don't want to overwhelm yourself working with every bit of information right away. Think strategically through each question, and you'll get more points on test day.